Welcome to our zoning meeting tonight. We're glad to see everyone. We were going to be thorough in this meeting, but expeditious because we don't want to withhold the beautiful weather outside from any of you. So we will call the meeting to order officially, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Director Rutledge, will you go over the rules of procedure for our meeting today?
Yes, so they will play. If we could get approval of the minutes from the January 23rd, 2025 public hearing, and then the rules of procedures will play.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the January 23rd, 2025 meeting.
I second that motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
And now we will hear the rules of procedures.
Each speaker must sign their name. Each speaker must sign their name to the appropriate zoning case sheet and fill out a public comment card to register their intent to speak prior to the start of this meeting. Each item of business shall be handled in the order that it appears on the agenda, unless upon motion of the board, the order is changed. A member of the county planning staff will present each item to the board and will provide recommendations made by both the planning staff and the Conyers-Rockdale Planning Commission for each item of business. The zoning applicant or the agent will have 10 minutes in which to make his or her presentation. Any portion of their 10 minutes may be reserved for rebuttal following the opposition to the application. After the applicant's presentation, all registered speakers who wish to speak in favor of the application will then be heard. They will also be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the applicant has made his or her presentation and the speakers in favor of the application have been heard, the secretary will then call upon the registered speakers in opposition to the application. The opposition shall likewise be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the public hearing portion is closed, no other speakers will be heard. As a reminder, speakers are to address the board and not the applicant or the audience and are expected to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. The use of abusive or profane language shall not be allowed. No debate or argument between speakers shall be permitted. After all public comments have been heard, the board may elect to hold general discussion. However, no decisions will be rendered at this hearing. Decisions will be made at the next regularly scheduled Board of Commissioners meeting. Appeals shall be filed with the clerk of Rockdale County Superior Court within 30 days after the final decision by the Board of Commissioners.
Very good. Thank you. All right. There's no unfinished business, so we'll move to new business.
Yes, and as planning staff is approaching the podium, Madam Chair and Commissioner Smith, I just wanted to point out that tonight, after speaking with the applicant and with the planning staff, that there would be a revision for the rezoning request from residential to commercial. This time it'll be considered for office institutional.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So our first case is FLU 2025-01 and REZ 2025-02. The property address is 2200 Frontier Drive Northwest, and the applicant or the representative tonight is
Henry Aramazel.
Mr. Olabisi. That's the representative tonight. But the applicant is Henry Haramolzi. This is an 18.18 acre lot, and the applicant is asking to amend the future land use map category from medium density residential to commercial and rezone from R1 to C1 which, as Director Rutledge just said, we're amending that to O&I. So the parcel, again, is zoned R1 and is surrounded by R1 and MHS. The future land use is medium density, and there are existing neighborhood commercial in spot zones in that area as well, and which include like a convenience store, fuel pump, and office buildings, and a neighborhood commercial center. So even though the C1 zoning district is permitted in neighborhood commercial, again, we had just spoken to the applicant and we're revising that. So neighborhood commercial is what we're going for now. So this slide, we can just go to the next one. And so the neighborhood commercial would be an appropriate land use designation, as there are precedents in the area for neighborhood commercial on the future land use map. And the site itself will have one building totaling 35,245 square feet, and they'll have 3 different types of living accommodations. They'll have 16 studio units, 16 one-bedroom units, and 40 two-bedroom units, a total of 72 units that can accommodate up to 112 residents. These units will have private bathrooms, kitchenettes, indoor amenities, including pools, physical therapy, wellness center, and common gathering area. Outdoor amenities include a bocce ball court, reflecting pool, walking path, and herb gardens. They'll have one access to this property. We have received all internal and external reviews, and the Fire, Board of Education, Stormwater, and Transportation said that the project will not negatively impact the community. Water and Sewer, however, commented that only private water and sewer is available for that area, and the applicant has stated that they will be getting water and sewer from a private company called Puntit Source Solution Inc., which they have said that they will be able to provide all the water and wastewater service to this development. So based on the evaluation of the request and the fact that the area has experienced some kind of commercial development in the past, staff opinion is that the rezoning of the property from single family to O&I would allow the property to be better use and service the community better. So therefore, staff has recommended approval, and the Planning Commission had also recommended approval with the conditions that staff had laid out. We have the conditions here if you'd like for us to read them into
I think you
record.
should read the conditions so the board can hear it.
Okay. So there are 7 conditions, and condition number 1, the applicant shall abide by all applicable standards of the Unified Code Development Ordinance for O&I zoning district, and that will change from what you have up there, unless otherwise specified in these conditions or through approval of a variance by the Zoning Board of Appeals. 2, buildings shall be brick, stacked stone, and or glass finish on all sides. Final building elevation shall be submitted for review by the Director of Planning and Development prior to land development disturbance approval. 3, the development shall provide a 50-foot wide natural undisturbed buffer adjacent to all residentially zoned properties. Buffers shall be replanted where sparsely vegetated and shall be subjected to the review and approval of the Director of Planning and Development. 4, the applicant shall provide a 20-foot wide landscape strip adjacent to the right-of-way. 5, outdoor lighting shall be contained in cut-off type luminaries and shall be directed in toward the property so as not to reflect in adjacent properties. 6, all utilities shall be placed on the ground. 7, natural vegetation shall remain on the property until the issuance of a development permit. And that's it. If you have any questions for staff, if not, the representative is here, Mr. Olabisi, to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, I do have a question for you. Do we have a letter from Point Source?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
We do.
excellent. Thank you very much.
And it should be in your packet, Madam Chair. If not, we can send that to you.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Mr. Olabisi?
Good evening.
Good
Madam
evening.
Chairman, Commissioner Smith, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening.
Welcome.
This is the architect on the project,
Hi.
Eric. We'll be answering any questions you have.
So I'm sorry to interrupt for just a moment. I'm going to make this announcement. I'll probably do it several times tonight. But as you're at the podium, if you could please speak directly into the microphone. We're streaming, and the people listening can't hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you gonna have them on the screen? Or should we stand these up?
You can just stand them up, will be great. Yeah.
Well, let's start with the site plan.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, sorry I'm a little late.
No problem.
We got locked in the hotel parking lot.
Oh, that's okay.
And the gate broke,
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm sorry. But, so, the 18-acre site, we came up with a pretty well close to what we want to do. It's an assisted living building with a medical center of 30,000 feet. I think we're probably going to shrink it down just a little bit because I know we need the buffer for the residential zone. However, I think all the calculations for parking and everything else seem to conform. These type of assisted living that we do is more of an expanded floor plan. It's more open space. We don't just lock the seniors in these little cubbies. It's more to make it interact. The elevation of the building is going to be all brick. This is the medical building. But so it will be brick facade, and that's the floor plan. It's kind of opened up. We're going to have 150 beds. 120 would be assisted living, and the other 30 is memory care.
Oh, good.
And we have a direct connection from the assisted living to the medical building through the basement, so that this way it's kind of connected, but yet it's not. We're, here tomorrow. We're going to try to work with your your planning staff to get, all the details worked out.
Okay.
And I think, we're conforming to all their recommendations for landscaping. Tomorrow I have an appointment with the sewer agency, somebody that has a private treatment plant. So we're going to be able to hook up sewer and water. It's going to be probably like 2,000 feet away, but I think we need that.
Okay.
So we're also going to try to keep as much natural trees as we can
Okay.
and landscape it nice and make it open space. So, we sent you the PDFs, but this is really, I have small 1117s I could submit so you can review it and see it. But, that's, again, like I said, we'll work tomorrow with trying to work some details out. And then we can make a resubmission to planning, provided you guys approve it.
I'm sure they'll take good care of you in planning and zoning. Can I see that, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us a little bit about projects that you've done in the past like this?
I'm sorry.
Can you tell us a little bit about projects like this that you've done before?
Oh, actually, this is probably my fourth one.
Okay.
I'm doing a big one in Niantic, Connecticut. We've done 2 on Long Island,
Okay.
in Melville. Each one is a little different. Every time, but now that floor plan is kind of a new concept where we do more open space. So it's more like, the patient, not the patient, the resident comes out of their room. It's more like a big living room. And it's an intermix between staff and, seniors.
So more engagement
Yeah.
for the seniors.
And that's the new concept. And every time we do one, we refine it a little bit more. But this is the most popular right now. And one of the key components, too, is we qualify for HUD financing, which is low-interest HUD money.
Correct.
So it's going to be a considerable low-interest loan to get this thing built. And I think it would be a nice improvement. I've only seen the survey and aerials, but tomorrow we're going to do a little bit more investigating and, try to get everything conformed.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I have a question. Did you talk to any of the residents around that area?
Can you
Did
just,
you talk to any residents around that area?
any residents?
The people that live around where you
Yes.
wanted to build?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And we have a representative right there.
I'm sorry, say it again. Oh, you have someone here? There's a resident here. Oh, okay. All right, great. I was just wondering. No problem. Thank you.
All right.
So would you be deciding on a specific zone?
Yes, the zoning classification would go from R1 to office institutional. And
Or office institutional?
correct.
Okay,
And that's what we call a step-down zoning because there's residents around there.
right.
So typically, we don't do
Right.
residential straight to commercial.
Right.
So there's a buffer
Yeah.
typically.
And one other key factor is the site is very topography.
Right.
And to have the access right in the center, we're lucky because we can keep our sight lines.
Yeah.
And then I made the grade kind of come up on a minimal slope, and then pretty well everything's flat. But we do have to do a retaining wall around. We'll move everything so we got the buffer for the residential, but we do need a retaining wall,
Okay.
so, which again, it's a nice type of wall. It has the imprint of stone on it. It's not just a big concrete wall.
Right.
I think it's a little bit more appealing. And we have quite a bit of landscaping and trees. So
Very nice.
again, it's all going to be subject to your review, but we're planning to do it nice.
Very good. Our staff looks forward to working with you.
Excuse me?
Our staff looks forward to working with you.
Yeah, good.
All right.
And we're going to visit them tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'm meeting the sewer guy too, which is important.
Yes.
So, okay, so,
Thank you.
yes, any other questions?
No.
All right. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we have anyone signed up to speak? No. No one signed up to speak? Okay. Right.
Who are you?
Did you, s-
But did you want to speak?
right.
Would you like to
Right.
speak?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Launchus Sexius, and my queen, my wife, remain Sexius. We live at the adjacent property to where this home is going to be built. We've lived in the area for the last 4 years, and we welcome the project. I think it will be a great improvement to the area, and we're looking forward to working with the project manager or, just the entire, development that's coming into the area. I think it will, add a considerable value to the area back there.
Is that the sentiment of the entire neighborhood, or mostly? Have you talked to any other neighbors?
Yes. So the neighborhood is split in two, right? So when you come down to where the property is going to be, you are on Frontier Drive, and it separates. The neighborhood is separated by Lake Rockaway. On the other side of the lake is the mobile home. So we are more in touch with the neighbors on the Frontier Drive, and my neighbor behind me, the neighbors immediately after you turn onto the street, they also welcome the property. And a few reasons why. One, this area have almost been neglected, right? When we moved there about 4 years ago, the amount of dumping, trash dumping, and it still takes place, but we've partnered with the city, where they're now coming out on a weekly basis and maintaining the area. For the first 2 years, we were hands-on. My wife and myself and my family, we clean that road and maintain it. But there has been an ongoing issue with dumping in the area. Even on the property that will be developed, there is dumping right there. On the other side of the road of that property, we just about 4 months ago, we see some homeless camps being erected in the property. So these are some of the issues we've been facing in that area. So I think something like this will add tremendous value, more visibility in the area, and I think it will, put that area on the map for Conyers in terms of more presence of police and just the awareness in the area. So we definitely welcome this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
before you leave tonight, if you'll fill out a card,
Okay.
so I'll have your information.
All right, great. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. Yes.
Was there anything else on this item?
No.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Then we're on to the
Thank
next
you.
one.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, we're on to the next item.
Item number 2, case REZ 2025-03. The site address is 1565 Northwest Farmer Road. Applicant is Will Moore. The applicant here is requesting to rezone 18.68 acre property along Farmer Road Northwest and Sigmund Road Northwest from R1 single-family residential to M1 limited industrial for the development of Georgia Power substation.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so 1565 Northwest Farmer Road is a wooded area, and it's undeveloped, and 1535 Farmer Road is developed with a single-family residence, which was constructed back in 1960, which will be demolished. And the residence is landlocked and is accessed by a driveway that passes through 1565 Farmer Road. The subject area, the subject site, again, is Zone R1, and the surrounding areas are M1 and M2, which you can see from the zoning map. And the property to the west was recently rezoned to M2, but it hasn't been updated on the GIS maps as yet. So most of the area is M1 and M2. And the future land use, which is light industrial. So again, they are requesting to rezone to M1 for a Georgia Power substation. The substation will be on 5 acres. There will be a 20-foot landscape strip along Farmer Road and Sigmund Road, and they'll have setbacks of 50-foot front and side along the right-of-way, 25 feet side setback adjacent to 1505 Sigmund Road, and it will have a 50-foot rear setback. Again, all internal and external reviews were received, and from fire, Board of Education, stormwater, there is no negative impact to the community. Transportation did have some comments, and I think I'm not sure if the applicant has reached out to transportation since this meeting, but before they had said that because the roads are classified as arterial major collectors and heavy traffic volumes, deceleration lanes are needed at each access point on Sigmund Road and Farmer Road, and they're to redesign and resubmit plans for approval. It is staff's opinion that for a substation, there shouldn't be much of a traffic, so they will have to kind of figure that out with transportation to see if the deceleration lanes and all of that are necessary. Water and Sewer commented that the substation will have no impact to water and sewer facilities in that area. So based on our evaluation, the staff had recommended approval with conditions, and the Planning Commission had also voted unanimously to recommend approval with conditions for this project. Again, the conditions are here, if you want me to read them into record.
Yes,
as
please.
well. Okay. So we have 8 recommendations. Number 1, the applicant shall abide by all applicable standards of the Unified Development Ordinance for the M1 zoning district unless otherwise specified in these conditions or through approval of a variance by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Number 2, the proposed development must comply with all Rockdale County land disturbance requirements. 3, should the future land use and rezoning application be approved, should the rezoning application be approved, the applicant shall submit a combination plat to the Department of Planning and Development to combine these parcels. Number 4, the applicant shall provide a 20-foot wide landscape strip adjacent to Farmer Road and Sigmund Road Northwest. Number 5, outdoor lighting shall be contained in cutoff type luminaries and shall be directed toward the property so as not to reflect into adjacent properties of rights of way. 6, where infrastructure capacity is later deemed unavailable at the time of application submittal, the applicant shall appear before the Planning Commission prior to submitting the land disturbance permit with proof of capacity. 7, all utilities shall be placed underground. 8, natural vegetation shall remain on the property until the issuance of a development permit. Those are the recommended conditions, and their representative, Mr. Justin Goldshear, is here if you don't have any questions for staff.
I think I can address him to our next speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Goldshear?
Good evening,
Good evening.
Madam. Yes, good evening, Madam Commissioner, Madam Chair.
Nice.
It's a pleasure to speak with you all tonight. I am the applicant, Justin Goldshear, on behalf of the property owner, and here to present a short presentation. So, quick high-level overview here. This property, as stated previously, is on the corner of Farmer Road and Sigmund Road. And let's see if we could go to the next slide. That's kind of where, so currently the property is next to a construction company called Pittman Construction. This project is part of a larger economic development project that has been in the works with Conyers Rockdale Economic Council, and it's kind of finally coming to fruition, which is great after a lot of work. If we could go to the next slide. And then this is kind of consistent with what was shown previously. This is already very much an industrial area. And, one of the main reasons this project came about was the economic development, Conyers Rockdale Economic Development Council knew that this is generally an industrial area and that there could be distribution centers put here, and they didn't want to have the truck traffic on the road. So there was a coordinated effort to try to rethink this area, to try to get these trucks off the road and have other uses that would be beneficial to both the residents in terms of bringing in jobs, as well as bringing in a significant amount of tax revenue to benefit the county as well as the school system. And then this is a kind of overview of the site plan here. So you can see a layout of the substation. This would be at absolute full capacity. The reality is it's going to be much smaller than that. And you can see that there's a vegetative landscape buffer that runs along Sigmund Road and will also run along we'll run along Farmer Road. We did design a decel lane by the request of DOT. We really think it's not necessary, but when we can kind of coordinate with them, our preference would be to have a smaller road so that we can hide this, we can hide the substation from the view of the road. So obviously, if we're creating a long decel lane, then that's going to create a larger view of the substation. We think that just given the limited access that would be required for the substation, we could probably create an access road to the south, or have a small access road along Farmer Road.
Okay.
And I think that may be it. I'm here to answer any questions you all have.
Okay. Very good. I have a couple of questions for you. When you talk about, so the width is enough for a car to come in and out based on what your needs are, correct?
Correct.
I mean, so the decel lane is what you're asking for consideration of?
Yeah, we can coordinate with DOT. We really don't think for something like this, just given the limited access that is required for the property, we don't think that a decel lane would be necessary.
So once construction's over, how many employees would you have on site?
There will not be any employees on site
Okay.
for the substation.
So it's just a substation
this-
that will lead to the further development?
Correct. Yeah, this is just for the substation. So how the process works is you have, higher voltage electricity that needs to be stepped down to a lower voltage.
Correct.
And that's what this substation will provide. But other than during construction, there isn't any requirement to have staff on site for the maintenance of that substation.
And for the benefit of the public, talk about why the substation's in the front of the property where it'd be, I guess, more visible than normal versus the back of your property, because you have a total of 18 acres, correct? Okay.
Yeah, so this, you can see kind of where it's laid out here. Mainly it just has to do with the transmission lines coming in. So because these lines are very expensive to build, it's a 230 kilovolt coming line that is coming in. So it's a big, expensive line to build. So generally speaking, you want to try to have the substation as close as possible to that line, because each extension of that line just becomes really, really expensive.
And what is the height on your substation?
That's something I don't have an answer to off of the top of my head. We can follow up with your office afterwards and share that information, but I can't imagine it would be more than kind of 50 feet, I would say, max. I'm just trying to think visually of seeing some of the substations. I would say probably around 40 feet.
I'm just trying to understand how visually you'll hide it.
Well, so our plan is to keep the vegetative buffer of the trees in place. So we would look at the setback there, and we would say we're going to leave all of those trees that are in the setback to maintain a natural vegetative buffer. But we're fully aligned with working together with the Planning Commission and staff to ensure that visibly we know Sigmund Road is a high trafficked road, and we want to ensure that this doesn't create any. We want to make it pretty. We want to be good stewards of the community and ensure that there's a that you just don't see an ugly substation like you do in some
Yes.
places when you drive by. So
Well,
we're
thank
full.
you. We just put a lot of money into that whole corridor.
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
and more
We're
is
fully
coming.
committed to
Okay.
coming up with
Great.
a solution with a landscape architect to ensure that the area looks nice.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Good.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
so much.
Was there anyone signed up to speak? All right, so we're on to the text amendments.
Okay, so we have 7 text amendments tonight, and the first text amendment is text 2025-01, and this is the initiation of the UDO text amendment 2025-01 to amend section 106 to add gasoline station to the definition and amend section 218-13 AA pertaining to the standards of use and development for a gasoline station and gasoline station with convenience store. Some of the takeaways for this amendment would be, again, the definition, facility that sells fuel for motor vehicles, including but not limited to gasoline and diesel. There shall not be more than 6 MPDs, multiple product dispensers. Another takeaway would be no gas station shall be located within 1 mile of another gas station. And another highlight would be there shall be a minimum distance of 500 feet between proposed gas station and a place of public assembly, church, hospitals, school. And those are just some of the new amendments to this text. And there are penalties for anyone that does not conform to these, to the text amendment after it's approved. So any violators, the provision of this article shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor upon conviction, thereof in the Rockdale County Magistrate Court, and shall be fined in an amount not exceeding $500 or be imprisoned in the county jail for a period not exceeding 180 days or both. So the amendment is for us to add a new definition to gasoline station and the new meaning and some new terms.
Can you talk about how your department came to decide that it would be 1 mile between gas stations, and was there any thought about the emission of fumes and things like that, or other environmental concerns?
Well, we did go through all of these with the county's attorney, and he had recommended that 1 mile would be sufficient. We tried to do a little more, but he said that 1 mile would be sufficient, and that's what we went by, because what we're thinking of is we would like to stop having gasoline stations in every little corner. So if you give it a distance, then that would be more suitable for both staff and citizens who have spoken out about it. So that's where we came up with that measurement. About the fumes and so on, I think environmentally it's best to have them spread out in the community instead of them being all stacked together or in every corner where there's residential homes. So it's just a better way of eliminating all of the toxins and have it more environmentally friendly for our citizens.
Well, I think part of the point of this text amendment was really to help us plan our community in a more thoughtful way than like what you said, which is 2 and 3 gas stations on the corner. So
Right.
aesthetically cleaning up our community and making it look more amenable to live here is certainly a plus for us in Rockdale. So,
Yes, ma'am.
all right.
I have a
So
question.
should, go ahead. So should we want to add or change something to the text amendment that could be an addition that would be, that we could handle at the BOC meeting, correct?
Yes, you can talk about that now, or we could take that in during the time between now and April 8th, which is when you would vote on this ordinance.
All right, I'll do more research.
Yes. And just to add on to this conversation, we looked at several different ordinances from other jurisdictions, and we tried to get close to what they might be doing. And we looked at several studies that were talking about the emissions and toxins and what that does to your community when you have too many gas stations and too many of these, I forget the technical, multiple product dispensers, whatever,
Right.
those.
Yes.
And trying to make sure that we stay somewhere in the middle, not too far out there, but also where we're not just overrun with gas stations.
Gas
So-
stations. So that's why we're limiting the
Number of
the number
pumps.
of pumps.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
very good. All right. And you had a question? Okay, good.
Thanks.
All right, thank
I
you.
think we have one person that signed up.
Let me guess. I'm sorry.
Charlie Giller. Giller.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Since I spoke about this at the Planning Commission, I thought y'all could hear me also. First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners for listening to the citizens about what they don't want to see any more of and putting a moratorium on these uses, and to the planning staff and others for drafting the ordinances. So I'm in support for items 1 through 4, which was limiting gas stations, convenience stores, small box discount retailers, vape stores, and mini storage, but I didn't think you wanted me to hear me say the same thing for each one. With the limitation of one gas station no more than 1 mile within each other, then I feel jurisdictional boundaries will become more important in case, for example, a gas station in the county is proposed next to a city residential area and vice versa. This will also make land use plans and changes to land use plans more important. So please keep this in mind also as we move forward with these ordinance changes. Thank you again.
Very
Thank
good,
you.
thank you.
So, I'm not sure.
You can go ahead.
I can go ahead? Okay. So, text 2025-2, this is an initiation of the UDO text amendment 2025-02 to amend section 106-1 to add small box discount retailers to the definition, and to amend section 218-1 to add small box discount retailers to the table of permitted uses and create standard of use and development that will apply to the use. Small box discount retailers to be added in the definition as a retail establishment with a floor area of less than 12,000 square feet that offers for sale a combination and variety of convenience shopping goods and consumer shopping goods, and continuously offers a majority of its items in its inventory for sale at a price per item of $10 or less, adjusted for inflation. The table of permitted use will be amended with the word yes in the column headed by the word supplemental reg, add in the word small box discount retailer in the column headed by uses, and add in the letter P in the columns headed by C1 and C2 to the reference table in our packets. So what this is saying is that we'll be permitting small box discount retailers only in C1 and C2 zonings. And Some of the takeaways from this is the use shall not be within 200 feet of a lot that is zoned to residential zone in classification, and also small box discount retailer shall be located within, no small box retailers shall be located within 4 miles of another small box discount retailer. They shall not be adjacent to residential zoning and shall not be within 200 feet of a lot that is zoned residential. So those are mostly the takeaways from this one. The amount of feet from residential and the amount of miles from each other. So again, just like the gasoline station, we're trying to limit the amount of these stores that are popping up all over in every corner. So,
And are we looking at step-down zoning from our residential to transition?
for the small box, we didn't look into any step-down zonings. We were thinking that they should just be restricted to the commercial zonings.
As long as it didn't abut residential.
As long as it doesn't abut residential, and there will be buffers if they do, but I don't believe they will because we're only doing it in C1 and C2, yes.
But just to be clear, they wouldn't abut residential. There would have to be a transition.
There would be.
Between
There would
the
definitely
two.
have to be a
So I don't mean
transition.
a landscape buffer, by the way, just to
Oh.
be clear.
Right, okay, so yes, they can do an O and I if they
Yes.
doing a transitional
Correct.
zoning, yes ma'am.
So if it's O and I, and under neighborhood commercial, there's a designation of maybe neighborhood commercial,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have a, not grocery store,
See a pharmacy or
pharmacy would be good. What is the other one that I'm thinking of? It's like a market.
like a flea market?
No, it would be more like a I've seen them around town, like a convenience market,
Mm-hmm. For
smaller,
fruits-
that
fruits
kind of
and
thing.
vegetables?
Like a,
I wish fruits and vegetables.
I'm thinking bodega, but they don't have those down here,
No.
so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Nonetheless, I'll do research and get back to you.
Okay. We didn't have anyone that signed up for this.
Okay.
Gillard spoke about it already.
So
All
I
right.
think we just keep
So
rolling.
you just keep going.
Let's just keep going.
All right, so text amendment 3, text 2025-03. This is the initiation of text amendment to amend section 106-1 to add vape stores to definitions, to amend section 218-1 to add vape stores to the table of permitted uses, and create standards of use and development that will apply to the use. The vape store definition will be as a vape store shall be defined as any business whose principal product line for retail sale is alternative nicotine products, vape juice, or vape products. And for this purpose, in the chapter, principal shall mean that alternative nicotine products, vape juice, or vape products constitute at least 25% of the business's aggregate retail sales. So there are some highlights for this one as well. In all zoning district of the county, vape stores are considered objectionable and are prohibited. Any existing vape store shall be considered legal non-conforming. And those are like the two main ones that we would like to point out tonight.
So does that really address the concern, or does an element of tobacco need to be included?
I personally believe if we're doing the vape stores, then we should include some form of tobacco as well, but that was not
The
included
original intent.
in this.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Very good.
Okay. And text 2025-04. And I want you to know also that all these text amendments, I forget to mention that when we went through the Planning Commission, they all approved them unanimously. So I didn't mention that before. So text amendment 2025-04, text amendment to amend section 106-1 to add mini storage warehouses to the definitions, and to amend 218-1 to add mini storage warehouse to the table of permitted uses and create standards of use and development that will apply to the use. The definition for mini storage warehouses should be added as a structure or group of structures for storage of customers' personal property, goods, and/or wares, where individual stalls or lockers are rented out to different tenants for storage, and where no stall or locker exceeds 500 square feet of floor area with interior or exterior access to storage units, non-climate control or climate-controlled exterior metal doors. The table of permitted uses will show or will amend to having these mini storage warehouses only in M1 and M2 areas, and they will need to have a minimum lot size of 5 acres. And the perimeter of any mini storage warehouse must be completely screened by fencing or landscaping, in addition to a 150-foot undisturbed buffer if adjacent to a residential zone district. The mini warehouse are permissible, as I said before, in M1, which is permitted, and M2 with supplemental regulations. And those are just some of the highlights of this one.
So right now, we allow M1 right next to residential.
There are some that are with buffers, yes.
And they've been approved in, let's say, the last 4 years.
The mini storage,
I mean,
Or
all the
just-
ones I'm thinking of don't abut any residential areas, but. So maybe if you can look into that for
Mhm.
me.
to see if any have been approved in the last 4
Right,
years that
right.
abuts residential, will do.
Okay, thank you.
And text amendment 2025-05. This text amendment to amend section 106-1 to add short-term rentals to definition, and to amend section 218-1 to add short-term rentals to the table of permitted uses and create standards of use and development that will apply to the use. The short-term rental definition any residential property, facility, or structure used for transient occupancy, providing overnight lodging and accommodations for not more than 14 consecutive days and no longer than a total of 30 days per calendar year. These we are suggesting to be only permitted in AR, agriculture residential, and WP zoning district, and if permitted in R1, it should have an approved conditional or special use permit. There shall be no structures permitted for use as no detached structures, permitted for use as short-term rentals, and no special events or private functions should be allowed at short-term rentals. So those are some of the takeaways or highlights from the short-term rental text amendment.
So let me say that short-term rentals like Airbnbs and things like that can be a great way to host people in the community during special events and that may come in, whether it's a cherry blossom festival or other events that may be going on. The concern that I've heard in the past from the public is always when it's in a neighborhood and it's right next door and the parties get out of control. The good thing is most of the short-term rental companies, whether it's VRBO or Airbnb, have put very strong language in their contracts that parties are no longer an option.
Right.
So there's really good features on both platforms to report that, and then there's penalties to both the owner of the property as well as the guest who risks their the monies that they paid. So that is an improvement, a significant improvement from years ago when this issue became problematic in Rockdale. And we don't have a lot of homes on the list right now for VRBO or short-term rentals here, but we just want to make sure that we're always going to have legitimately run operations. And so, some people may be concerned that short-term rentals are a bad thing. I have not seen that to be true in other places. In fact, I've traveled and used those platforms to find out about new communities and things like that. But I do think it's a step in the right direction in Rockdale to legitimize who's running those operations, and it can be a tax revenue incentive as well for the community. But most importantly, I think it's those home designations that have closer proximity to the neighbor that in the past we heard was problematic.
Right. And as long as we can do maybe like registry for these.
Correct. And I had spoken with Director Rutledge about Putnam County and some of the other communities that have very tight regulations for short-term rentals, and they include both a fire inspection for the location. It also includes a very stringent process, and you can also limit the number of Airbnbs or VRBO or what other platform people have. And so in one county, they limited them to 330. And so once you're in that pool, you typically can stay to the next year unless there's a violation, and then you get kicked off the list and you cannot get back on the list. There's also civil penalties and other things as well. So it works very well in the areas that I've researched, but it's been a lot of thoughtfulness that goes into exactly how those ordinances are written. So I will make sure you have the information for the communities I've seen do it best.
Okay. And also, this is just like a small synopsis of what is written. Like in your packet, there is more detail as to what we're recommending and all the penalties and who has to sign up and when they lose it or keep it. So it's all there. This is just a little draft of it. So.
Okay, very good. I will say, Madam Clerk, I think it's really important on this particular text amendment that people have a lot of clarification.
Yes.
And the more we can promote this so we can get any feedback and include what we're looking to do with the registration program and things like that, I think it would be helpful. I will say that I'm a little concerned about R1 having the special use permit option. And so I think if you look at Putnam County's program, it's laid out extremely well. And I think you would find a lot of information that would be beneficial as you go through this experience. And there's, I think in Putnam County, I talked to Monica and Lynn Butterworth. They both have been with the program for quite a long time, so they'd be a big help, I'm sure.
And since we're just doing this as text amendments right now, and we're going to be going through the UDO stage.
Correct.
I'm thinking we can amend or, tweak any little thing that we see that we need to change.
And I would agree, except that R1 is such, R1, could be your next door neighbor that you can
Right.
see
Right.
right next door.
Right.
And that's probably most concerning. So I'll give it consideration and maybe make a recommendation that we wait for that piece of it before we make that addition.
Okay.
And we'll wait for the UDO process. So
Agreed.
I'll think about that.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
very much.
You're welcome. And so, text amendment 6, 2025-06. This text amendment is to amend section 218-1 to the table of permitted uses and section 218-13 supplemental regulations to add data center height amendment and create standards of use and development that will apply to the use. This text amendment was brought to us by Mr. John Nix. So I think he would like to present this one.
He does. He really does.
I'm just doing it to give you a break. I was drafted. This ordinance really does two things. The existing ordinance had a poor definition of data centers. The existing ordinance just calls them data processing services, and it really is kind of a throwback to where we are now with data centers. So the first thing was to provide a definition of data centers that's specific to Rockdale County instead of relying on the default definition that the North American Industry Classification Services provides. It always seems to be a better idea from my perspective to have your own definition when you can provide it rather than the default, because every time they change their ordinance, your ordinance automatically changes, and if you don't keep up with it, then something pops up and you said, oh, I didn't know it said that anymore. So that's why this ordinance takes away the default to NAICS. And the other thing it does, it creates a supplemental use. So it didn't have a supplemental use before, but the supplemental use for this is limited to allowing data centers that are an M1 or M2 to go to a limit of 85 feet in height. The reason for that special use or that supplemental use, there are some hyperscale data centers that are requiring themselves to go up instead of go horizontally. And knew that you all are going to be working on a UDO, but wanted to see if there could be an ordinance that would be kind of a Band-Aid to address it. Because as you know, we're getting a lot of interest in the corridor, Salem Road, Farmer Road, that location. And if there was a user, a hyper user that needed that height, we were trying to patch that for right now until you take a deeper dive into data centers. So that's the purpose of the amendment. It does improve your definition. It does do a better job there, but it does provide this 85-foot limit, but only in M1 and M2. Because one thing you all do, I know you know this, is that you allow data centers in like 6 categories, including OI, which is kind of unusual.
Fix that. Would you please? Yeah, I am surprised by that. And I know on the Salem Road corridor, I don't know of M1 and M2 unless you're on the side where Evans Tool and Die is up to 138. So it's not on the...
No, this site that is of interest for this is part of the request for the substation, quite candidly, possibly. But it also could apply to any other. We only have 3 data centers right now that are approved. It's the one for DC Blocks, the one across the street from DC Blocks where nothing's going on right now, and then the property that's up in this area around the pond. It's all M1 or M2, so
Which
it's already
pond?
sitting. Well, I call it a pond. When you looked at the property that they showed for the substation, immediately,
Tonight.
right? Immediately
Okay.
adjacent to that, there's a site with a pond, a body of water. on it.
Okay. Okay.
Some people call it a lake, but I grew up in Arizona, and that was not, we didn't have ponds. We had
Not for
one
long
lake.
anyway.
No,
So just to clarify, on Salem Road, a substation does not mean that a data center could go next door.
no, it has to
Okay.
have and I have limited knowledge this much compared to the room is full of the knowledge that's applicable to this.
Okay.
But they got to have the power that he was talking about, and most of it has to come via a substation. And the way you get a substation with a data center now is you go to your power provider, Georgia Power in this instance, and you negotiate with them
Correct.
to get the power.
Correct.
And they
pay
make you
big
go
money,
over, right.
big
And-
money to get
Well,
that.
and the theory is, Georgia Power will tell you, I've heard this in a public meeting, so I can say it, that they're getting that industry, whoever it is, to pay up front not only for the infrastructure, but for the ability for Georgia Power to deliver the power. So it's not like they're taking power from over here and turning out the lights for 50 residences. They're making that entity not only build, they're not going to build it, Georgia Power is going to build it, but have the infrastructure and the ability for Georgia Power to deliver the power. And that's why they're paying large sums of money, not just for
Right.
the power station, but giving Georgia Power the ability to deliver the power.
Right. And those deliveries take years right now. So-
They do. If you
Okay.
have a Georgia Power deal right now, you're sitting pretty.
Yes. All right, thank you.
So our last text amendment is text 2025-07, and this text amendment is to amend section 2-135 and 238-3 Planning Commission and section 106-1 definitions that will apply to the use. So the definition, the following words, terms, and phrases when used in this section shall have the meanings ascribed to them in this subsection, except where the context clearly indicates a different meaning. City means the city of Conyers, Georgia. Planning Commission means Rockdale County Planning Commission. So for this text amendment, as you're aware, we're trying to separate the city of Conyers and the Rockdale County Planning Commissions. So for us, the Rockdale County Planning Commission shall consist of 5 members, down from 7. And 3 of the members initially appointed to serve on the Planning Commission shall serve for a term of 3 years each. And the other 2 members initially appointed to serve on the Planning Commission shall serve a term of 4 years each. Thereafter, each person appointed to serve on the Planning Commission shall serve for a term of 4 years each. The intent being to have staggered terms for membership of the Planning Commission. So this one is more of an internal thing, as you may
Okay.
say, administrative.
All right, very good. Thank you. You're welcome.
Are there any other items, any other business from the planning staff?
There's no other business.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is it.
All right, that concludes our Planning Commission meeting tonight. Thank you for your time. I appreciate those that are watching at home. Good night.
Good night.